using these gorgeous glitter tumblers. And there's so much information out there. There's so many amazing tutorials. I know it can be overwhelming at times. So how do you get started, right? Well, that's what I want to help you do today. I want to give you some information and help you build a good solid foundation so that you can start making your own glitter tumblers. Now, before we dive into all of that, let me take a minute and introduce myself. Why should y'all even be listening to me anyways, right? Well, I'm Megan, and I've been making glitter tumblers for close to 3 years now. This is a business for me. It's how I feed my family, so it's very, very important to me. But it's also something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that I love to do. I'm an ambassador for Backfist Customs Glitter, so a huge shout out to the owner, Bruce Jackson, for allowing me to take over this Backfist Customs Glitter channel and allowing me to share my knowledge with you all and show you all how to use these amazing products that he has to offer us. Bruce has been in business a little bit longer than I have, and we work really, really hard as a team to research new products, bring you the best products, show you how to use these products, and find fun new ways to use the products that we already know and love. So make sure you like the video and please hit subscribe and click that bell. Make sure that you are one of the first people to know when we post new content. And I'm telling y'all, we are always working on something new, so you don't want to miss it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's just dive in. Let's find out what you need so you can start making glitter tumblers. So you need a tumbler. These are stainless steel tumblers. They come in many sizes and shapes, right? They're great. They are eco-friendly. We are reusing products. We're not wasting a bunch of things in the trash, so that's always a plus. They are insulated and double-walled, so there's not going to be any sweating on the outside, ruining the materials that we've used to decorate this with. It's going to keep your drink hot and cold, and these are just amazing. So stainless steel tumblers, right? And make sure you check the description because we're going to put a bunch of links down here so it's easy for you guys to find all of this stuff, right? Stainless steel tumbler. Now, you also are going to need some sanding blocks. Sanding blocks, a little bit of information here. This one is an 80 and this one is 120 grit. The lower the grit, 80 is lower than 120. The lower the grit, the deeper your groove is going to be. That's how I remember it, all right? I hope that makes sense for you guys too. So this is going to be a rougher sand. This 180 is going to be a rougher sand than this 120 grit. The higher grits are great for kind of smoothing some things. This is kind of great for roughing it up a little bit. So get a couple of different ones and you're going to find out which ones really you prefer, but I have a couple of different grits on hand because they're great for different things. So I've got my sanding block, I've got my cup, and I want to give it a good sand. I do this over my sink because I wash it right after to prep my cup. And this just gives a little bit more of a surface area, and whatever I'm using to put on here, it just grips it that much better, right? So I suggest to sand your cup down a little bit and then wash it, and that's how we're going to prep our cup. Now, the last part of prepping your cup is painting it. Now, you're going to find some techniques and certain things that you use might not necessarily need a base coat, but get that into your brain. Get it into your foundation that you always want to base coat your cups. Base coat it close to the color of what you're going to put on it, whether that be glitter or mica. We're going to talk about a couple of things here in a minute, but whatever you're putting on it, you want to base coat it close to that. So for base coating, you're going to need some spray paint, an airbrush as well. It's one or the other, really. You don't need both. I've invested in the airbrush. I'm in Ohio and it keeps me inside. So I love my airbrush system, and some people prefer the spray paint, but you're going to need something. Acrylic paint you can even use to base coat, but you need something to base coat that cup. So we've got our cup. We've got it prepped. What are we going to put it on, right, to decorate this? There's a couple of different options. You've got a hand turner and you've got an electric turner. I've got an electric turner here. Hand turners, I don't want to knock anybody who hand turns, right? I've seen some amazing pieces of art come from people who hand turn. They work really, really hard to get their art like that. So they're amazing. I don't want to knock them, but if you are trying to build a business for this, that is not the economical way to go, right? You have to sit there and hand turn that cup for many, many hours. And if you aren't doing it the entire time, if you're taking breaks, then the end result is probably going to be a little bit subpar than what you could get from an electric hand turner, or from an electric turner versus the hand turner, I should say. So hand turners, they are good for when you're decorating. It is kind of great to have that control and kind of just turn it when you want it instead of it constantly turning while you're decorating. So a hand turner is nice for some of the beginner steps. But for the final steps to get these nice and smooth, you definitely want to add an electric turner into your inventory here. I have built mine. I'm pretty handy. She is not the prettiest thing in the world, I'll tell you what, but she works, and she works great, and it was less than $20 for me to build this. So for me, that is the route that I prefer to go. Now there's some amazing turner sellers out there, so do your research a little bit, and before you decide if you're going to buy a turner, ask some other cup artists what they like and what they dislike about their turners, and that'll kind of help give you a little bit of an idea on what brand to go with if you decide that you're going to purchase a turner. So we've got a turner, we've got a cup, cup is prepped and everything, right? So we need something to kind of connect it. Now, most turners are going to come with some type of an arm. That's what we generally call these, is an arm. You put your cup on it, and then you put it on your turner. Now, some people put pool noodles on the end of here. Some people put footballs. This is a rubber PVC rubber donut. I've got all of those things over here actually, because different sizes of cups work better with different inserts. So I've got them all there. So I've got everything just readily available for whatever I need. But you'll see a lot of different options, and you know, you'll once you've kind of played with a few of them, you're going to find what you prefer the best. So we've got a cup. We've talked about turners. Very important, protect your space underneath. Epoxy is permanent. It is very hard to clean up. Although you can strip a cup. I don't want you, when you're starting out, don't get so worried. I was so nervous about messing up cups. It is pretty easy to strip them, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But anything can be salvaged, you know, so branch out and don't be afraid to try those things. That's the only way that you're really going to learn and grow as an artist. So to protect this, I've got a silicone mat here. These are amazing. The epoxy pulls right up off of it. So something to protect your space here. Now we've got a couple of things that we can actually put on here to decorate. One of the most obvious, and why I fell in love with these tumblers to begin with, was glitter. It's so sparkly. I know this is a little bit hard to see, so I'll get some pictures for you guys. But this is Supernatural. This is a purple, and it's got some holographic here, obviously from Backfist Customs glitter. So one thing that I really want to address is craft glitter versus polyester glitter. One of my main things that I love to tell people and that I try to follow myself is invest in yourself and invest in your business. You're worth it. Your business is worth it. Do it, you know? So it's going to bring you so much, right? And help you grow. So a lot of people want to start out with that craft glitter, but invest in yourself and invest in your business and go with the better polyester glitter from the beginning. You are not doing yourself any justice in your learning if you're learning on a subpar material, right? Craft glitter it doesn't lay as flat, and you might need 3 coats of craft glitter versus just 1 coat of polyester glitter, And that can be kind of defeating, especially when you're starting out in this craft. You're like, oh my goodness, I've done 3 coats of this glitter. It still doesn't look like these other cups that I'm seeing out there. Why? Because they're using better products, right? And it's very frustrating if you're not getting that look that you want. So start out with those better products right in the beginning. Polyester glitter is also UV resistant, solvent resistant, so it's not going to fade or dull that sparkle under the epoxy or out in the sun like a craft glitter will, you know? So use this polyester glitter. It has a better coverage, it lays flatter. This is the way to go for glitter. You've also got other things that we can put on our cups, such as alcohol inks. We've got micas. Micas are kind of more shimmery, right? Instead of like a sparkle like a glitter, but they're gorgeous. So these are all different things that you're going to learn, and things that you can use. And this doesn't even touch the surface of it, right? There's so many other colorants, but I don't want to overwhelm you very much. I just kind of want to show you that there are possibilities. There's so many possibilities, but finding that foundation and learning how certain things are working in your environment and how to kind of adapt a couple of these steps to yourself is really going to help you in the long run. If you get that base foundation and know how epoxy works, or know how your favorite adhesive works, then it's going to help you so much when you move on to more complicated techniques down the road. So those are a couple of things that, you know, we can put on there. And like I said, so many more. When someone says, can you put this on a tumbler? You know, my first thought, my mind goes to, yes, how are we going to do that? I might not have seen that, but let's figure this out. You know, it's really just figuring it out how. So how are we going to get all of these beautiful things on our cup, right? Well, we've got a couple of different options. We've got this non-fabric adhesive, and this is, I love this size. This is in a pen. This is a 1 ounce, so it's great for trying it out. I also really enjoy the control that I have with the pen top. This is similar to Mod Podge, but so much better than Mod Podge, right? You can use Mod Podge, but this just grips that glitter so much better. I feel like it gives a better coverage than the Mod Podge. So Mod Podge is a brush-on adhesive option, but I would definitely go for the non-fabric adhesive over the Mod Podge. You're going to need some type of a brush if you're using a brush-on adhesive. So some type of a paintbrush. This is a Mod Podge brush, and this really reduces the streaks that you can have in that application of the adhesive. So paintbrushes, wonderful. You'll need some of those. Another brush-on adhesive out here right now is the Tack It Over and Over. This lays the glitter super flat on the surface, and you do gotta have to kind of like rub it in a little bit, but it gives a really fun technique and really shows the holographic effect of a lot of these glitters like nothing else really can. So that's kind of a fun thing to kind of start out with, and it's easier for beginners as well. You know, the rubbing kind of takes a little bit, that's kind of weird, but I think it's a easy adhesive to kind of start out with applying glitter, and it gives you a beautiful effect that really knocks your socks off. And I think that's important when you're starting out. You know, you want to celebrate all of those little victories, because for me personally, it just kind of gives me that motivation and stamina to just keep going and keep diving in and building, you know, my skill set and you know, my knowledge around it. So then my favorite adhesive to apply a lot of this would be epoxy. And this is also how we get this nice, smooth outside glass-like finish, right? Is epoxy. You're gonna hear this interchanged with resin a lot because it is a type of resin. There's many types of resins, but the resin that we are interested in to make cups is epoxy resin. So you're gonna hear that kind of interchangeably a lot, and I don't want you to get too confused. It's the same thing, but you know, it's just how people are kind of shortening the term. Epoxy resin either epoxy or resin, right? So this is a two-part thing. You might find it called part A and part B. You might find it called like resin and hardener, part 1 and part 2. Each company might label it a little bit differently, but it's the same two-part system basically, right? And you want to mix this 50-50, even ratio. So the same amount of part A and the same amount of part B. And when you mix these together, it causes a chemical reaction and it makes it harden and it cures over time. So I don't want to scare you by telling you that this is a chemical reaction, but you do need to be mindful of that, right? And you need to take a couple of precautions for yourself. Now, I'm just going to tell you the very bare minimum of personal protection equipment, PPE, that you need. I urge everybody to go and talk to your doctor, especially if you have any health concerns whatsoever. Take the material safety data sheet for the epoxy that you are going to use into your doctor. Those MSDS sheets, every company that makes this resin epoxy is going to have that readily available, right? If you can't find it quickly on their website, which usually you can, just Google the brand and then MSDS and it usually pops up. But reach out to them and they have to provide it to you. And most of them, they're so nice and they, will send it right back to you. Take that information into your doctor because epoxy, there's a lot of like generalities that we can say about epoxy, but there's going to be a few little things different between certain brands. So you want to make sure that you're helping your doctor give you the best information that he or she can to help you make the informed decision for what's best for yourself and your household. So take those sheets in with you when you go to speak to your doctor and just find out if there's other equipment, personal protection equipment that you should wear. Some of those things might be a mask, a respirator. People will put on full suits. So those are, options that you'll want to explore for yourself. Gloves. These are the bare minimum. You always want to have gloves, okay? So make sure that you have some good gloves. I like the nitrile gloves. So they're a little bit thicker and helps prevent any like seepage in through the glove while you're working. So the other thing with epoxy that you're going to need is you're going to need some measuring cups. These are just 1 ounce like graduated medicine cups, right? And these are really great you need that 50-50. It's not like a question. If you don't have a even ratio, it's not going to cure properly. So make sure you've got your mixing cups here. You're going to need something to mix that epoxy with. So a couple of different options is a popsicle stick. These are cheap and they're easy to get, but this can help put extra air. When you're mixing that epoxy, this can kind of put extra air into it. So not my favorite tool, but needs mentioned, right? This is a little silicone stirring stick. And these are great. I love these. Again, reusable. So we're not adding extra trash and waste into the environment. I love these. These are great. My favorite is the metal stirring stick, right? I like it because it's a little bit longer. So I've got my 1 ounce cups that really any of these work wonderful in, but if I'm gonna do a little bit of a bigger batch in, let's say, a silicone mixing cup, I really prefer these. Now, your silicone and your metal stirring stick, these are going to reduce the amount of bubbles. I know you guys have all heard horror stories about, oh my goodness, bubbles in my epoxy, right? So this is going to be your first step to reduce the amount of bubbles in your epoxy, is either the silicone stick or the metal stirring stick. So great investment, both of those. So the other couple of things that you're going to need as we talk about bubbles is a torch. There's all kinds of torches out there. This is kind of like, you'll find these like called culinary torches, basically. Who's a creme brulee lover, right? Because they use this to kind of make a creme brulee. So, or something very similar anyways. So a torch, this is very handy. Now, that is going to reduce or remove really the amount of bubbles that you have when you've got your coats of epoxy. You'll hear people talk about a heat gun too. This is a heat gun. I do suggest having this in your toolbox, but this is not what you want to use to remove those micro bubbles in your epoxy. This provides more air and less heat. So there's a bunch of fun techniques on cups that this is great for. So you want to have one, but to remove those bubbles, you need the heat of a torch. This is less air and definitely more heat. So you want this torch. A couple of other little things that you're gonna need are like little alcohol pads or baby wipes, especially if you're using something like the metal stirring stick, right? You need to kind of clean that epoxy off. If you don't clean that epoxy off, it's gonna harden on there, it's gonna cure on there, it's gonna get all gunky, and it's just not gonna stir as well, right? And you don't want any of that coming into a new batch of something that you're making, a new project. So baby wipes take it off wonderfully. I prefer these little alcohol prep pads. All kinds of, anything like that will work. You also want some type of a knife, okay? Because this is how you always want to clean your rim. And this is wonderful for that, just a regular X-Acto knife. But my favorite is a hot knife. This is basically an X-Acto knife at the end of an iron, for the most simplest term to describe this, right? This gets hot and your blade gets really hot. So when you're cleaning that rim, it really reduces the risk of breaking the seal, and it cuts it like butter. It just makes it so smooth. It's easier on you. So again, something that's nice to have in the toolbox. With the epoxy, I like these FIFO bottles. First in, first out is what it stands for. And these are great. You want to keep it with the yellow top up, right? If it is down this way, it can start to leak. And that's just because this epoxy is really kind of heavy on that valve. So once it's sitting on that valve for a while, it can tend to leak. So you want to keep them up like this. You always want to screw your bottoms really nice before, like when you're refilling, because this can kind of come loose. So if you hear people talking about these leaking, that's kind of why. Probably not storing them properly or not tightening up. Things come loose, so you just got to make sure that you're tightening them when you're switching things out. These are great at being able to measure in something small, like that small medicine cup. So this is all that you need really to get started. You know, you see all this stuff behind me, and it's an addiction, you know, and as you build your skill set and your business, I mean, your inventory grows, right? But you don't need all of this to start out. And even all of this, you know, you don't need every single piece of it. But these are your basics, right? These are the things you really kind of want to start playing with and getting to know a little bit. And using to build that foundation and knowing how epoxy works. Epoxy is very, very temperamental. So when you're looking for epoxy, things that you want to look for are, make sure that it's food safe, right? Make sure that you know you've looked at that MSDS sheet and know if there's any, you know, health hazards or anything going on with it. Epoxy is self-leveling, so that's the other reason why these turners, with your electric turner, it's great. It's just, you want to make sure that everything is level here, but as this is turning, you know, the epoxy self-levels itself, and that's how you get this nice smooth glass-like finish over your glitter or whatever else that you've used to decorate. So the other thing when you're looking at epoxy, the heat tolerance is something that you kind of want to pay attention to. You know, lower heat tolerances such as 125, you're not going to want to leave that cup in like the hot Florida sun if you're on vacation, right? But some epoxies have a higher heat tolerance, such as 500. So depending on what type of project you're using, those are things that you just kind of want to be aware of. You want to, when you're finished with this cup, you want to make sure that you give your customer, or whether, even if this is just a gift, you want to give that recipient information on how to properly care for this. So that's going to be hand wash, not dishwasher safe, right? The temperature can really affect the epoxy. So you never want to put these in the dishwasher. It's not microwave safe. It's made of steel. So, you know, can't go in the microwave. You want to tell your customer this. But then again, if they could possibly melt their cup in their car, you also want to let them know, please don't leave this in a hot car or extreme temperatures. So when you're done, you know, providing things like a care card, your business card, cute packaging, make it look nice. You know, you've spent so much work on these. You want to make it look nice in the end. Clean those rims up. Use your sanding block to clean the bottoms and stuff before that last coat of epoxy. And watch all of these videos. You know, we're going to go through more steps and actually show you the process. But really today I wanted to just kind of talk about all these materials and things that you really need to get started. So make sure you watch those videos and we'll kind of, you know, walk you through some of these steps. But these are all just things to keep in mind as you get started on things that you need, right? So make sure that you end it nicely. You know, you've spent so much time on these. You want to send it out nice. And that'll really help you as a business owner and grow your customer base and become credible. You know, I mean, it doesn't look great when you've ordered a very expensive cup and it looks beautiful, but it arrives like in a trashy box. You're like, oh my goodness, am I supposed to drink out of this? Like, you have to think about that. People are putting these things to their mouths. They're drinking out of them. So you want to make sure that you are using you know, you're outside, your epoxy is food safe. The glitter, obviously, nobody wants glitter in their food, but that's why we seal these with epoxy. The only way to get this nice, smooth, glass-like finish is epoxy, all right? There's no other finish out there right now that's going to be food safe and give a finish like this over anything on a cup. So epoxy, you know, is definitely how we get that end result. Now, it can be a little bit intimidating, so play with it. You know, you're going to have to find that adjustment. Most epoxy cures touchable between 8 to 10 hours. It takes 72 hours for it to fully cure. So I might be cured in 8 hours, but you might be in a colder climate and it take you 10 hours, you know? So there might be some slight differences, but in general, overall, most epoxy is, you know, in the same ranges, I guess I want to say. So, you know, it likes the heat. It really likes to be around 75. You know, if your room is too cold, it's going to take longer to cure and it might not cure properly. If your room is way too hot, it's going to take less time for it to cure. But again, it might not cure properly. It might be a little bit more brittle that way. So you really want to make sure that you do kind of look at your epoxy brand's guidelines. They'll all be out there. You know, they want you to be able to use their product the best way. So check those out as well when you're finalizing what brand that you're actually going to use. I've got art resin here. Bruce sells art resin. So we'll put a link for that in the down below in the comments. But this is a great beginner epoxy. You know, it's nice and affordable, and it's not too temperamental. You know, some epoxies are a little bit more temperamental than others, but I really like my art resin, so I would definitely suggest that as a beginner, something great for you to use. The consistency is really, really nice too. So, and just remember, every time you kind of, you know, even 2 years plus of using epoxy, if I use a new brand right now, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. So always remember that when you guys are building this skill set and building your knowledge, building your brand, that there are some learning curves when you switch things up, and that's okay. That's what makes you grow. That's what makes you a great artist, right? So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope that this was helpful, right? Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, okay? We are going to bring you guys all kinds of new amazing videos to help you through this. Leave us a comment. Let us know if you have any questions. You know, we're here to help you. So I hope this gave you a little bit of confidence and some knowledge to help you get out there and make your first glitter tumbler. So thank y'all, and I will see you next time.